Okay, here we go. So thank you everyone for joining. Again, this webinar is just to educate all of you a little more on how to eat and how to train with PCOS, menopause, perimenopause, because all of those things will definitely create some roadblocks and some frustrations in getting your goals. I personally do have PCOS, so I've dealt with a lot of these things myself. Now, one thing you will notice, a lot of the things are going to be tied together because PCOS and menopause are both basically an imbalance of the sex hormones. So there will be some similarities in some things, but there will be some differences as well. So I did separate a lot of the things, but at the end of the day, in terms of the nutrition and training, a lot of it is actually similar in terms of how to aid in getting those results a little better. Um, for as a thank you for all of you for joining. Don't be afraid if you joined late. Again, I'm going to be recording this. So I'll send out the recording. You'll have access to all the articles, the links that I'm using as reference. You'll get a free week trial on my app. So if you are looking to get a little help in any of the fields in terms of nutrition or workouts, I am happy to help with that. But I'll give you a little taste, a little free trial on the app. Again, you'll get the email with all of this stuff. And I'm also going to be sending you a free recipe ebook as well. So stay tuned after once the recording is uploaded and I'm able to share the recording. I'll be sending that email out to all of you. So on that note, let's get started. So my background is, again, training and nutrition. I am not specializing in hormone therapy or anything like that. I am not a physiotherapist, but I do have my background in personal training, women's health, and nutrition, precision nutrition. So I'm not a dietitian, I'm a nutrition coach. There is a little bit of a difference there. I'm not allowed to prescribe medications and I'm not allowed to diagnose anything. That's the main differences. So without further ado, there will be questions at the end. So I'll unmute everyone at the very end. So if there are any specific questions you want to ask, we can open the floor. So let's make sure this is going. There we go. So symptoms of PCOS. So some of the things that you will notice with PCOS, insulin resistance, obesity, so easily gaining weight and a little bit more sensitive to carbs and sugars, endometrial disturbances, so irregular pregnancies, irregular periods, sometimes a harder time getting pregnant. Again, very irregular. So you might have either longer periods, more intense periods, or the opposite. Increased likelihood of metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease. So what that means is, again, the resting metabolic rate, your actual metabolism is going to be a little out of whack. So again, gaining weight a little easier and cardiovascular disease because there is an imbalance in those sex hormones. When females have a little higher androgens when they shouldn't, there's now higher blood pressure, potentially higher cholesterol as well later, as we're not able to digest fats as well. Also, so cardiovascular disease increases in risk. High risk for endometrial cancers, again, anything with the sex hormones, it's throwing those hormones out of whack, which is now going to increase the likelihood of some of those cancers, breast cancer as well, with menopause and PCOS. Something that I know since COVID, we are getting a little more versed in, and there's a little more research on mental health. So a lot of studies are actually showing that people with PCOS are 8 times more likely to have depression or anxiety. Again, personally, I did experience a lot of this. So I can speak firsthand on a lot of these things. If you do have any specific questions, I'm an open book and I'm very happy to share anything. This is a nice little diagram I found just to kind of show how everything really ties in together. Now, don't worry. I know some of these words are a little maybe big, confusing, and maybe you have not seen them before. Um, so adiponectin and leptin are basically what help with glucose level. So regulating your sugars and breaking down fats. So when those aren't working properly, now we're going to be tying into type 2 diabetes because now you're not able to break down those things. Insulin resistance is tied into that, which is also tied into that, again, imbalance in the androgens, those sex hormones, which in the middle, you're going to see that's where you're getting all that metabolic syndrome, hypertension, dyslipidemia. So again, harder to break down those fats, and you're more likely to get visceral fat, which is basically the deep fat, which is much harder to break down and lose. And it's basically surrounding your organs. So that ties into a lot of other health risks as well. Um, Inflammation, again, tying into those imbalance in hormones, regulating glucose levels, all of that is causing all these things, which is going to be negatively affecting your health in different ways. So it looks a little confusing and there's a lot of things going on, but I like to show how everything is so tied in together. Now, looking at menopause, a few things that are different. So, cessation of menstruation, you're actually going to no longer get your period, which sounds awesome, but it's not because there's a lot of other things that are not great. So, hot flashes, fatigue, again, talking about the cardiovascular disease and breast cancer now with the imbalance in hormones, sexual dysfunction. So, things aren't going to work the same, lower libido, lower lubrication, those things, which luckily there are things that can help with that specifically. But if we actually get to the root cause, we can help all of these things get a little bit better. Sleep disorders, whether it's trouble falling asleep or having a hard time staying asleep, mood disorders, which I think tie into all of that because you're uncomfortable, you're not sleeping, you're hungry. So, of course, your mood is going to be a little not great. Increased risk of osteoporosis. Your bone density is actually going to be decreasing. And I'll talk more on that as well with the resistance training and how that helps a lot. And increased appetite. Again, your hormones are not functioning properly. And there's hormones that are telling you when you're hungry and when you're not hungry. So those don't work properly, which means you're going to think you're more hungry than you actually should be. So again, really focusing on foods that help make you feel satiated for longer and getting good nutrients in all of the food you're eating. So resistance training and PCOS. Again, this is going to help with both menopause and PCOS. I somewhat separated them, but a lot of these things are still very similar for both. So, improving insulin sensitivity. When you're weight training, you're actually getting a little more bang for your buck, I like to call it, where you're not just burning calories during, but after your workout as well. And we're also going to be using more glycogen stores, which is what ties into the quicker, rapid glucose uptake, meaning you are going to utilize glucose a little easier and faster, increasing functional strength. So just day-to-day things being easier, but also the more weight you're lifting, the more calories you're burning. If you're lifting a 5 pound weight and you're burning so many calories to lift that one weight once, if you're now lifting a 50-pound weight once, you're actually doing more work and burning more calories. That one repetition might not be a huge difference, but when you add it up over a whole workout session, that can make a huge difference. Lowering blood pressure, again, tying into the CVD, the cardiovascular disease, we want to prevent those kinds of things. Increasing your BMR, so basal metabolic rate, sitting here doing nothing is your resting metabolic rate. So where you naturally are with burning calories throughout the day, that is 2/3 of your energy expenditure. So if we can increase that, you're going to see better results. One thing I'm huge on is you can't just do cardio. So I literally verbatim this little quote here. With only aerobic exercise, it will improve cardiovascular health and weight loss. However, your BMR will slow down without resistance training. Females over 35 are already losing muscle, which means, yes, it is a little bit of an uphill battle in that sense. So resistance training is just that much more important. So we still want to do cardio, the aerobic exercise, because it's going to help with cardiovascular health and it will aid in weight loss, that total calorie burn for the day. However, we really want to increase your BMR. That is the gold mine to seeing results and lasting results. So it's not a quick fix, and we don't want to actually create more damage in the long run because we'll actually slow down our BMR without resistance training. So, really big on that one. Again, tying into the menopause, a lot of things are going to be the same here. So, increasing your BMR, increasing your energy, your mood, increasing functional strength and bone density. Resistance training helps to strengthen your bones. So as you're getting older, we don't want to fall and break a bone super easily because that will happen. Uh, Obviously, training will also help with balance and mobility, but now we're also going to be strengthening those bones, so we're less likely to have those injuries. Better quality sleep. So, again, hitting that deep sleep when you're resistance training, we're causing the body, again, to have to continue to work after you're done training because now your body has to repair those muscles that technically we broke down those muscles and they're repairing. That is actually how we get stronger, and that is how we build muscle. So, because our body is now in repair mode, it actually hits a better deep sleep. So, working out resistance training is going to help you with that sleep as well. Tying into a little more on the nutrition end. So now this we can get really deep into this. I'm going to kind of scratch the surface a little just to kind of keep it more general. So it's a little easy to follow. I don't like saying you should never have to just follow some crazy program. Understanding the guidelines and understanding what you should be gearing towards. Not to get too tied up on calories because calories look different and our body actually kind of uses calories different in different types of foods. So something like empty calories, if you're looking at chips or cheesies, there's not really nutrients in them, but there's calories. Where if you're getting some of these types of foods where they're more dense in nutrients, your body's actually utilizing them and breaking them down, which is also burning more calories. So to digest things also burns calories. So really good with healthy fats, fish oil, fatty fish, so like salmon, um, nuts, walnuts, almonds, cashews, pistachios, whatever you like, avocados. These are all healthy fats. Those healthy fats are going to tie back into the hormones because in order for our hormones to function properly, sorry, excuse me, we need to have adequate amount of fats. So a lot of people, and this has changed a lot over the years, thank goodness, but for the longest time, like, early 90s, fats were bad and everything was no fat, no fat, no fat. But we actually want healthy fats. Not only is it going to help us prevent stored fats, it's going to help prevent, again, cardiovascular diseases because we're cleaning out the arteries with the healthy cholesterol. There is good cholesterol. And of course, hormone function. Dark leafy greens. There's a lot of really good nutrients. So when you see that in the supplements and vitamins and minerals, so magnesium, calcium, a lot of different vitamins. Dark leafy greens are just so dense in those. So spinach, kale, broccoli, bok choy. I put a nice little picture here of a really well-rounded meal with protein, sweet potato. So it's got shrimp for protein there. You can use chicken, whatever you want. Salmon, obviously, nice fatty fish would be good. There's some sesame seeds, sesame oil, sweet potato, and it's just loaded with different vegetables. Legumes, also very dense in a lot of nutrients, and fiber. So, fiber is also a really big thing for a lot of these, specifically with preventing like helping regulate glucose levels. Fruits and veggies, so berries, citrus fruits, peppers, currants, those are all really high in like antioxidants and a lot of good vitamins and minerals as well. So tying back into like the supplements now. So maybe you're not getting enough from the foods you're eating. Some things that are really important to supplement. Now, I am going to separate the PCOS and menopause a little bit here. So with PCOS, we're thinking magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B, obviously increasing the protein intake. Menopause is going to tie in a little more to the calcium, potassium, um, again, all the vitamins, all the proteins, reducing alcohol and salt intake. That is a big one for preventing weight gain, but also preventing cancer and cardiovascular disease. So reducing those intakes and of course refined sugars. So if you do need sweets, you do need some kind of like sweet tooth, little sugar. Getting it from fruits is a much better option. It's going to react a little different in the body as well. And you're getting fiber, which is going to help prevent those spikes. And then, of course, you're getting some vitamins and minerals in there as well. So, personally, I am one of those people that will sometimes go to the sugar-free options, but I do prefer things like stevia. It is a plant-based, it's not a chemical. We want to prevent those chemicals as well because our body doesn't know what to do with them. So that can cause a whole other thing of issues. And there's a lot of studies with like increased cancer and things like that. So I personally like to try to steer as much to the natural options as possible. And then my biggest rule of thumb for anything is everything in moderation. If you're not overdoing one thing, you're probably okay. So water. Now, this one, most fitness professionals, that's all they talk about because it is so important. So I made sure I'm not leaving it out today either because it helps with so many things. Every single function in our body, just breathing, is using water. So helping maintain cellular function. So right down to the cellular level, our body needs it for everything. Regulating heat balance. So for those hot flashes, that's maybe going to help a little bit. Detoxification, again, kind of just cleansing that body. Proper GI tract. So in our gastrointestinal tract, that is where we absorb most of our nutrients. So if the gut health is not doing so good, we're not going to absorb nutrients. And then again, it's just that full cycle. Things are not going to function properly into hormones, into digestion, into everything. Um, Moisture of the mucous membranes. Again, that's proper function, getting the lots of fiber as well. Skin elasticity. As we age, we get wrinkles, we get saggy skin as we lose weight sometimes. If we're drinking lots of water, it can help with that skin elasticity and just healthier looking skin. Important for transport of nutrients and oxygen through the body. So again, right down to that cellular level, everything our body is doing, it's working together, it's moving things around, it's telling other parts of the body what to do. Water is one of the main parts of that transportation. Electrolyte balance. So again, tying back into cardiovascular disease, also brain function. So when our electrolytes are off, those signals that have to communicate to the brain, the actual working of our heart is using electrolytes. So that is very important to keep that balanced. So most research is showing the recommended amount, 33 milliliters per kilogram of body weight per day. So throughout the day, in the little example here, 140 pounds is 63.6 kilograms. 33 milliliters of that per kilogram is 2,100 milliliters, which is 2.1 liters. Personally, I tell everyone getting at least 2 liters is key. That is your minimum. That's if you're not doing extra things and you're not sweating it out. So if you're working out, you're sweating, hot flashes, all of those things, now you need more water. So 2 to 3 liters is usually my kind of general recommendation for most people. Nutrient breakdown, so macronutrient breakdown. So proteins, carbs, fats. Again, kind of talking about each thing a little bit here, but I also wanted to tie into that sugar and fiber because those are such a big part of this as well. So protein is like my gold standard. Usually you're thinking like 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, for some people that might seem like a lot. So for any female, if you're getting more than 100 of grams a day of protein, that is good. If you can get closer to 120, that's even better. Now, I'm going to dive a little deeper into this as to why it's important. So, especially for weight loss, protein, for 1 gram of protein that we eat, it is 4 calories. That 1 gram for us to break down and digest, we are using 5 calories. So if you're only eating protein, just the digestion alone is going to put you into deficit. Now, keeping in mind that most foods aren't just pure protein. There's proteins, there's little fats, little carbs. Even in like a chicken breast, a lean one, there's still a little fat, there's still a little carbs. So we are still going to get other things. And then, of course, other things are still really important. So getting enough protein is huge. And for most people, they don't get enough. Just general blanket statement there. Carbohydrates. So 120 grams a day is a pretty general guide because, again, we're utilizing our carbs throughout the day before we really dive into like keto diets and things like that. Short answer to a lot of questions. Yes, we can function without eating a lot of carbs. Our body will turn other things, so proteins and fats, into glycogen in the body. That is a thing. It is a process. And it works well for some people and it doesn't work well for others. If it's not a sustainable thing to eat no carbs, then don't do it. Carbs are not the enemy, but eating the right carbs in the right amounts is very important to see the best results, especially with PCOS and menopause. Now, I'm not saying perimenopause a lot because perimenopause is basically just the lead up to menopause. I forgot to kind of mention that at the beginning. Vegetables, minerals are also carbs. So a lot of the carbs we want to find ones that are high in fiber, like vegetables, low sugar, low fat, and low salt. So if you're thinking about the carbs that you eat right now, you can kind of do that checklist. Are they high in fiber? Are they low in sugar? Are they low in fat? And are they low in salt? If it's yes to all of those, then that is a good carb to have. We also want to make sure it's not overly processed. But if it's overly processed, there won't be a lot of fiber in it. Sugar intake should be less than 10% of your daily calorie intake. So, breaking it down a little bit, also just a touch less than 5% is what's actually going to help you get a lot more of those benefits for your health, for your weight loss, for preventing a lot of those cardiovascular diseases and such. So just a little example here, doing math again. Math is not everyone's strong suit, so I like to make little examples to make it a little more clear. So if you're having 2,000 calories a day, which for some people that might actually be too much, 2,000 calories a day, that means 200 calories would be the maximum amount from sugar, which would be 50 grams of sugar. That's still a lot of sugar. Now, if we're taking that ratio down to 5%, that's 100 calories, so 25 grams of sugar. So if your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, is saying that you should be eating 2,000 calories a day, then you should be having less than 25 grams of sugar. If your BMR is saying something more like 1,600 or 1,500 calories a day, that means even less than 25 grams of sugar. So the less sugar we can get, the better. Low glycemic index carbs and high in fiber. So again, tying into the fiber and the carbs a little bit, we want to make sure that they're high in fiber and low glycemic, meaning they're not going to spike our sugar levels because if we spike those sugars, we're going to basically be satiated for like 5 seconds. Not really 5 seconds, but we're going to drop that down and then we're going to be hungry again. So being hungry faster after eating carbs means it's probably not enough fiber and it's probably not a low glycemic carb. Recommended amount for fiber is 25 grams a day. Now, for females, it's usually actually higher, more like 30. And if you're looking for CVD prevention, so again, cardiovascular disease, 35 to 45 grams of fiber a day is actually what you should be looking for. That is very challenging. So, really consciously focusing on getting high fiber in your diet is actually very important. And then, of course, it's going to help with proper digestion as well. So, all of those are really, really, really important. Now, improved sleep. This is probably tying more into menopause and perimenopause. PCOS, sometimes sleep disturbances is a thing, but it's definitely more of a menopause symptom. So, getting foods closer to bed that are higher in like melatonin and tryptophan. So, nuts, cherries, strawberries. Now, I really had to add this wine and grape skin that I found in the article because I thought that was funny that it specified wine grape skin, not just grapes. So the grape skins are actually higher in melatonin and eggs and fish. Tryptophan, again, which helps with the melatonin levels. So sea fish, shellfish, sea fish is like codfish, things that are in the sea. Algae, so spirulina. You can get a lot of these in supplements as well. Eggs, so especially the egg whites. soy, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, cheese, and yeast. Also, a regular eating schedule is also really important. If we're trying to go to bed, but we're like digesting a heavy meal, that can cause some issues too. Not to say you can't like eat close to bedtime, because that's a bit of a misconception. What we eat before we go to bed is more the issue than when we're eating. So, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I know some people work shift work, where your eating schedule is going to be different all the time. But if you just try to line it up to when you're going to be waking and sleeping, that can kind of help. So, especially for things like that, um, finding these types of foods for after dinner or closer to bedtime might actually help a little bit. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to open it up for actually. There we go. All right, so I think, yes, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for our Q&As if anyone wants to um, ask any questions. The floor is yours.
I have a question, Nikki.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're talking about sugar and trying to keep it at, 5%, you're referring to like added sugars, not like natural sugars that, come in fruits and things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're eating like a lot of fruits and stuff, that will obviously increase the sugar intake, but keeping in mind that our body's going to use that sugar a little bit differently. I still recommend people to kind of keep an eye on that. We don't want to be eating too much of that either. But I wouldn't include that in that like less than 5% sugar intake.
Okay. And what else was I going to ask? So should we, as we're getting closer to, say, menopause, should we be trying to get more protein even to, help with the possibility of muscle loss?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
like, how many grams would you recommend? Is it
So
dependent on body weight, I guess?
it is usually dependent on body weight, but again, I'd say for females, if you can get like 100, 120 grams, that is a win. That is pretty great.
Okay. So 120 grams.
If you're looking at from overall calorie intake, if you're getting like higher than 30%, like in between 30 to 40% of your daily intake food should be from carbs,
Okay.
if that helps.
Yep. And is there any supplements that would help? Like, would
Yeah.
you recommend calcium supplements?
I, for as you're getting closer to menopause, calcium, potassium, and magnesium are very important. Um, And again, though, if you're getting a lot of like dark leafy greens, legumes, a lot of that stuff, you're going to be getting a lot of those nutrients from that as well. So as you're getting older, yes, I would say calcium.
Okay. And do you have the recipe for that little picture you had with the sweet potatoes and stuff? Because it
I
looks
can
good.
definitely send that. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think that's all the questions I had.
Perfect. Thanks, Shannon.
I had a question about aspartame. Can you
Hmm.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, wasn't sure. Um, I have a Diet Coke addiction. I'm so ashamed. Um, but like, what does aspartame and artificial sweeteners, what does that do to metabolism? And does that lead to increased belly fat and that sort of thing?
I would say short answer, yes.
Who?
The reason why, I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that's not the answer you wanted to hear.
It's not. It's not.
Um, there's actually I guess, pop version called Zevia, where
Yeah.
they use stevia as a sweetener. Maybe giving that a try. I know it's probably not going to taste the same,
I will try it.
I'm not a big pot person, so it's hard for me to say, but basically what happens with aspartame and what's the other one? Sucralose, a lot of the chemical versions, our body, again, we're taking in what we think is sugar. Our body is now starting the process to produce amylase, to produce those digestive enzymes to break down a sugar, but then there's no sugar there. So, what it's actually going to do is tell the body that it needs sugar because it's ready to break it down. So now we're actually creating more cravings for sugar. And then there's also a lot of research and studies that are showing a whole other world of like bad things. So like, cancer and different
Mhm.
negative effects that just again putting a chemical into our body. Now, Tara, not to, don't totally beat yourself up about it because again, I'm one of those everything in moderation. If you can limit the amount of that, I think that's still going to be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I try and limit it to 2 times a day, but sometimes you're just having a day, and I try
Yeah.
not to do it very
Yeah.
often. But I mean, my limit is 2 Diet Cokes a day, and it's just the cans. But
Yeah.
there are days. There are
Yeah.
days. You
I
know,
mean, if you can get it down to a couple a week, that would be a lot better for you.
you're asking a
Um,
lot. I will.
I
I will try the stevia. I will try the.
was gonna
What
say
did you
try
call
the
it?
Zevia.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
it's called
Zevia. Right.
Zevia. So
Yes,
it's
I've
like
seen it
Z.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I've had like I don't drink pop often, but like root beer, like growing up, I don't know why I always had like every once in a while, I'll be like, I really feel like a root beer. And I don't know why. So Zevia actually has like a root beer version. I saw it once at like a CHFA conference. It's like all the like supplements and natural health products in Toronto. And
Mhm.
I got to try one. I was like, this is actually pretty tasty. So
Okay.
try it
I will
out.
give
It
it a
might
try. I will give it a
surprise you.
try. I will
Yeah.
give it a try. I'd be taking a
Even if
trip
you
to
have like
Healthy
one of
Planet today.
those, yeah, one of those to satisfy, and then maybe one of your diet, with a Diet Pepsi, Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
my weakness.
there you go. One Diet Coke, one Zevia. Maybe that will help a little bit. I don't know.
I'll try it. I will give it a try. For you, I'll try it. I'll let you know how that goes.
Sounds good. All right. Any more questions?
Yes, I have another question.
Yeah.
Could you recommend a what would you recommend would be the best protein bar, clean protein bar?
So there's quite a lot out there now. Um, and I can actually send you a list of kind of ones that I like and how
Okay.
they're kind of different.
Okay.
Again, finding the more natural ones. Daryl's is a really good natural one that like tastes good. If actually
I
like,
love that one. Yeah.
yeah, Daryl's
I've
is
had them.
good.
They're very good.
A lot of the other ones that afraid to say it, but I eat have a lot of like sucralose in them. So I try to kind of mix it up with like the health, like the all natural ones. So really reading labels with that because a lot of them do have sucralose in pretty high amounts because there are some that are kind of like more almost like chocolate bars. So if you're having a
Yes.
craving for a chocolate bar and you decide to do that instead, then you're still fighting with that. You're getting sucralose instead. So again, everything in moderation, like if once a week I have a craving for a chocolate bar and I choose that instead of a chocolate bar, not the end of the world. But if I'm eating that like once or twice a day, that might be a not as good in the long run. But yeah, Daryl's. Let me
Okay.
look at my list because there's a couple
Okay.
there. Cliff bars are natural. However, they're more like a meal replacement most of the times because they have a lot of like other things. Uh, but they're more
Yes.
natural. So again, our body
Okay.
knows what to do with the natural stuff.
Okay. Yeah, just sometimes it's helpful to just get that extra protein if you haven't been able to get enough, throughout your meals.
Absolutely.
And same with like the protein shakes. We quite often will use the little premier protein, shakes that you can just get in the little
Mhm.
cartons, just
Yep.
because they're so convenient.
Yeah,
So may not always be the best way, but it helps get that extra protein.
you got it. I was gonna say protein powders are great. And then again, You can get like the kind of natural version ones. Now, a lot of though, actually, it really depends on the brand, but a lot of the protein shakes, the sucralose isn't. You can find ones that don't have a super high amount.
Hmm.
And then a lot of them are actually sweetened with like stevia and stuff. So just reading the labels, I think would be helpful to kind of see those. But again, if you're getting that little extra bit, you can also get unflavored protein. So if you want to
Yes.
like add it to foods, like this morning, I made my protein pancakes and I put a couple eggs, some chia seeds, some oats, scoop of protein. It just helps increase the protein in it. And if it's not flavored, like I add vanilla extract and cinnamon.
Yep.
So it still tastes amazing.
Hmm.
Um, that's why it really boosts the protein. Greek yogurt, I
Yep.
often add like half a scoop or a scoop of protein. So when you're adding protein powder to things, it doesn't need to have a flavor. So getting the not flavored won't have sucralose or artificial sweeteners as well.
Okay. That's a good idea. I didn't even think about that, the unflavored stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
of course. All right. Any more questions?
None for me, thanks.
All right. So
None,
I
none for
will,
me, thanks, but I would be
okay.
interested in that protein bar list as
Yes.
well. Yeah,
Yes, I'll add that to
yeah,
the email then.
yeah,
So I'll send out and the recipe for that
yeah.
yummy stir fry.
Hey Shannon, there's a one of the protein powders I use is the Isomax all natural vanilla. You can get it at Healthy Planet and it's low sugar. It's really good.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Thank you. I'll look for that.
Yeah,
Awesome. All right. So again, I'll be sending the recording. It takes a little while to load the recording, so the email might not come out till a little later today. But I'll email that. You'll get the healthy recipe ebook as well, and you'll all get a free trial. So even if you weren't able to make the webinar and you're listening to the recording of this, again, I'll send out all of that. If any other questions do pop up down the road too, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. I'd be happy to chat and answer any questions. So thank you again for tuning in. And again, I'll send those links to the articles as well if you want to dive a little deeper and get some of the more specific numbers and info on some of the things I touched on today. But enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everyone. And thanks so much for tuning in.
thank
Thanks
you.
very much. Have a good day.
All
Thanks.
right.
See you